Welcome to NTD Good Morning.
Here are today's top stories. Democrats won big on election night with their party's candidates winning the ballot across several key races in New York City, New Jersey, and Virginia.
And California voters approve a plan redrawing congressional districts in Democrats' favor. Governor Gavin Newsom hailed the move as a win for both his party and the nation.
At least 7 people are dead after a cargo plane crashed near Louisville's Muhammad Ali International Airport. What officials are saying about the disaster as an investigation is launched.
And the Supreme Court hears arguments today on the legality of President Trump's global tariffs, sweeping measures imposed under emergency powers.
Meanwhile, lawmakers breaking records. The Senate's stalemate has caused the longest government shutdown in history as of today. President Trump again calling on Republicans to change the rules to bypass Democrats.
And we are starting the countdown to Christmas. The season's already in full swing in Germany. How tree farmers are kicking off the most wonderful time of the year.
This is NTD Good Morning, live from our global headquarters in New York City. Here are Stephania Cox and Carrie Dunst.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Today is Wednesday, November 5th. You're watching NTD Good Morning. And topping the news this morning, of course, is election night last night.
That's right. As we already said, the Democrats with a clean sweep, mostly in blue states, but still a resounding victory for them last night.
And many of the results are in, and we'll start off with 3 of the major Virginia elections. The governor's race in Virginia, Abigail Spanberger, the Democratic candidate, projected to win at 57.5%. That's over her Republican candidate, Winsome Earl Sears, trailing behind at 42.3%. And lieutenant governor's race in Virginia, Ghazala Hashmi projected to win at 55.6%. That's with 96% of the votes in at this point. We've got Jason Miyares. He was the incumbent, and he lost at 46.5% to Jay Jones, 53.1% for the Attorney General's race.
And in the governor's race in New Jersey, Mikey Sherrill wins pretty steadily with a 56.2% turnout in her favor over Jack Ciattarelli, the Democrat. And of course, the historic 3-way New York City mayoral race. Zohran Mamdani wins more than the combined results of Andrew Cuomo and Curtis Sliwa, with 91% of the votes counted at this point. And just over half of voters chose Zohran Mamdani, as we just showed you, in a historic election. It saw the highest turnout in 50 years. More than 2 million New Yorkers cast their ballot. And take a listen to some of Zohran Mamdani's supporters.
And why did you choose to support Zohran?
I think that we all deserve to have a dignified and beautiful life here in New York City, and that New York City is not just for billionaires, but for everyday working people.
I'm supporting Zohran Mamdani because I believe we should live in a city of affordable housing with affordable housing.
Do you feel that Zohran will be able to make good on the promises he made, like for affordable housing, freezing the rent, fast and free buses?
I hope so.
As mayor-elect, Zohran Mamdani prepares to take his seat in City Hall. His opponents are warning about his socialist policies, with Curtis Sliwa saying the movement is not over yet. And
our Washington correspondent, Luis Eduardo Martinez, came up I-95, and he was at Cuomo's watch party last night here in New York City to hear both from his Democratic and Republican supporters about why this is, quote, a caution flag, that we are heading down a dangerous, dangerous road.
New York City has elected its new mayor, Zohran Mamdani. The 34-year-old New Yorker will be on 2026 the new mayor of the largest city in the United States. It remains to be seen if he will be able to implement all the promises that got him elected.
New York, tonight you have delivered a mandate for change. A mandate for a new kind of politics.
And this campaign was necessary to make that point. A caution flag that we are heading down a dangerous, dangerous road. Well, we made that point.
Andrew Cuomo's campaign attracted not only anti-socialist Democrats and independents, but also Republicans who did not want to see a socialist leader elected to be the next mayor of the city.
The other candidate, like Zoran Mamdani, I think he's dangerous. We don't know what he's going to do to the city, and that made me and also my friends who are like huge Trump supporters all like to decide to support Andrew Cuomo in this election because it's not about parties.
Jewish Americans living in New York City also sent a warning to New Yorkers and to the rest of the country of what it means that Zoran Mamdani is going to be the next mayor of New York City.
As a Jew in New York City, realizing that Zoran Mamdani, he doesn't like us. And he is someone who is, call him a wolf wearing a sheep's mask. And he's out to get us by slogans, by words. And he's fooling all the people who are in New York City that are uneducated.
A tearful Curtis Sliwa, the Republican candidate, sent a message to the victorious candidate, Zoran Mamdani, that his movement is not over and that the guardian angels will be here in New York to watch for the safety of New Yorkers and the future of this city.
If you try to implement socialism, if you try to render our police weak and impotent, if you forsake the people's public safety, we're not only organizing, but we are mobilizing, and we will become the mayor-elect and his supporters' worst enemies.
New York City has now elected its first Muslim mayor, a Democratic socialist, and it remains to be seen what lessons the Democratic Party learns from these elections and takes on to the midterm elections next year. Reporting from New York City, New York, Luis Eduardo Martinez, NTD News.
And joining us for commentary on last night's results are Peter Lumaj, attorney, Republican strategist, and first-generation immigrant from socialist Albania, as well as Angie Wong, Miami GOP committeewoman and Republican strategist. Thank you both for joining us early this morning. Peter, starting with you, let's discuss your broad thoughts on last night's turnout across all of the elections.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I never thought that almost 37 years after I escaped socialist Albania, I'm going to have to deal with socialism in the United States. Socialism is all about command and control. It's about promises that cannot be kept. What Zoran Mamdani did, he made promises to the voters who are not very well informed about socialism. We have done a terrible job when it comes to educating the younger generation about socialism. As a matter of fact, we're blaming capitalism for the failures of the failed liberal policies in New York City, and he was able to tap into it. I mean, all these voters, or at least the majority of them, they appear to be basing their vote on the emotions, not on the information that they have when it comes to providing affordable housing. What has caused unaffordable housing in New York City has to do with the failed liberal policies, freezing the rent. I mean, does he have the power to do that? If he does it, what happens to the landlords where they cannot afford to maintain those buildings for the residents or the tenants that live there? When it comes to providing free transportation, who's going to pay for it? I mean, all these free things that he's promising, we have seen these promises before. I have seen this movie before, and I don't like the ending of it. This is all about command and control. And that starts with the promises that he's making to the younger generation, that he's making to the so-called disenfranchised, people who appear not to be happy, people who appear to blame others for their failures. And this is not the answer to it. I think that New York made the wrong choice by electing the first Muslim mayor, which shocks me that every media outlet out there now is referring to him as the first Muslim mayor. Yet when he was running, pretty much every media outlet out there ran from mentioning the fact that he's the first Muslim mayor or the first Muslim candidate running for mayor in New York City.
Yes, and in regards to your comments on socialism and saying that we've seen this before, certainly all of the communist revolutions start with going to the working poor and sort of stoking their concerns, but then advocating for policies that actually don't address what their concerns are because of the free market components that you just mentioned. You know, you don't have the money to fix the building if you freeze the rent, and so you kind of go down this snowball. Angie, love to get your perspectives.
Yeah, look, yesterday, Democrats, they won the momentum. That's certain. We saw a complete clean sweep across multiple states. They have the momentum right now. But these new rock stars of the party, the Zoran Mondanis, the AOCs, the Bernies, are they going to be louder than the moderates who also won, the Mickey Sherrills, the Abigail Spambergers? Are they going to be able to now move the entire party to the far left, which is where they want it to be? I'm not sure. I think you're going to see a lot of internal fighting amongst the Democratic Party. I'm certainly looking forward to watching that whole thing go down. Here's what we've also learned. Affordability is the key word for election 2025. Republicans have to take on this messaging. We have to understand how Democrats were able to win pretty much in every single race that was run yesterday. 25% of New York City voters now identify as Democrat socialists. It's certainly more than a movement. They're actually moving the dials. Now, I'm with my colleague here. I'm really nervous that we're not teaching our kids what socialism actually is. I'm here in Miami. We have lots of Cubans here who fled socialism and communism. My own family, we left Hong Kong because of the encroaching Chinese coming in and taking over a lot of what we're going to start seeing New York is going to be doing. You're going to start seeing New York now move towards this progressive socialist experiment. And that's where I'm a little bit nervous because we've just gave the keys to a big socialist, one of the biggest cities in the country. So you know what? New York City, you bought the ticket, take the ride.
Yeah, indeed. And you mentioned sort of how this frames potentially narratives going into the midterm elections. You had mentioned earlier this week, Angie, that you're going to be running campaigns, and so you're looking for signals. Peter, I'd just love to get your experience growing up in Albania and some of the things that you've seen tried and failed and how it's being presented, because you both have mentioned education is really something that is important when it comes to the dangers of socialism.
Look, whoever owns or runs education owns the future. And what we have done with the public education in the United States, we have been providing mostly anti-Americanism to our kids instead of providing Americanism. When you compare socialism, and I grew up in a socialist country, as you mentioned, that we were owned by the government. We were enslaved by the government. We were told what to do. We were told what to think. We were told what schools to attend, what jobs to hold. And anyone who disagreed with the government was subjected to arrests and tortures and imprisonments. When my brothers and I escaped communist Albania 37 years ago, my entire family was picked up by communist agents who were the only ones with guns at that time, by the way. They were taken to a concentration camp and they tortured my father to death because he had failed to notify the government that we wanted to escape Albania and search for freedom and opportunity. Now, we found that freedom and opportunity in the United States, but we're losing that. When Reagan said to see the greatness of the United States, sometimes we should do that through the eyes of refugees. We're failing to really teach American-born citizens about the greatness of this country. 63% of non-American-born citizens in New York City supported Mandami. This tells us that immigration policies in the United States are allowing people to come here who are not compatible with our values. They come here, become American citizens, and they are voting for the same systems or policies that failed them in their countries, and they want to implement them here. And this is the perturbing part that we're seeing, is a pattern and practice in the United States, that we have these foreign-born candidates running for office and then trying to implement the policies that drove them out of their countries.
Yeah, you bring up some really important points, and of course, our deepest sympathies to you for your family's experience. Angie, building on that, I think that the modern face of socialism in America is, we're not like China, Cuba, potentially Venezuela. We're more like the Nordics, and how do you potentially address that as you prepare your candidates to run in the midterms?
Well, that's always the sell, isn't it, right? It's like, we're different. We're not like the old school socialists. No, that's the sell. That's how they rope you in. Here's what I know. This is a movement. We now see the results of the movement. It's also highly organized. This is not going to stop at the 2025 elections. This group has organized candidates across the country, from congressional seats all the way down to dog catcher, to take every single municipality that they can under this new movement. And I've seen them organize. They do it. They host these events on the weekends where they interview candidates. And that's how AOC came to power, is because she went in for essentially an audition. they even say so last night that, look, now they're going to go after whatever seats available in 2026. We're looking at the midterms now. That's going to be the next big fight. The midterm election begins today, and they're going to be planting candidates, socialist candidates, all across the country. That is the biggest fight for the Republican Party, if I've ever seen one. We better mobilize, and we better get the messaging right. We better be able to talk to our American voters about affordability, because that's what they're using as a hook to get everyone on board, which is what we saw in New York last night.
Yeah, and I want to come back to that in a moment, Angie. You bring up some very interesting points. But to you, Peter, Angie mentioned this well-oiled machine, and certainly the use of social media as a way to connect to young voters. Trump did it very well. He did it better than Harris, and probably, you know, his role on TikTok is probably what helped him with the movements maybe started by Charlie Kirk, helped him bring enough young voters to win all of the swing states. But what tactics has Mamdani successfully used in appealing to young voters, particularly with new media channels, and what should potentially the Republicans get smart at in light of last night's results?
Look, I think that one of the reasons, or the main reason why Mamdani won New York City, has to do with the fact that we had two weak candidates on the other side. I mean, Cuomo lost the primary, then he wanted to become independent. He had to resign in disgrace when he was a governor. He wasn't providing, what the voters were looking for. I mean, he couldn't come to the scene and say that I'm the guy who's going to save New York City when he failed New York State. Because when you look at the failed liberal policies nationwide, I think that Republicans are going to have to do a better job explaining what's causing the suffering of these people who are embracing Mamdani. Whether it's the currency depreciation, where it was the purchasing power of the dollar, whether it's the confiscatory taxation that we have in this nation. I mean, we have to talk about these deeper things that are causing people to embrace socialism and blame it where it's supposed to be blamed. Blame it on the Democrats that are destroying our economy, whether it's through the Federal Reserve, through printing money out there that is causing inflation. Inflation is the greatest threat that we have in our society today, because when you have inflation, you have higher prices, and the only one that benefits from inflation is the government, because it collects more taxes on prices. So these are things that I think the Republicans are going to have to do a better job educating the voters out there, whether it's through the social media. The other threat that we have as Republicans is that the media is not doing the proper vetting of these candidates. I mean, they didn't do any work when it came to vetting Mamdani. This is a 34-year-old guy who has never produced anything, who has never created a job, who has never held a job, who is pretty much raised by a rich family, yet he's attacking the rich, who is openly attacking the producers in the United States by blaming them for the failures or for what the other people are going through. And the media hasn't done a good job vetting these candidates. So I think that is a combination of circumstances in this case, that we had a weak candidate on the other side, on both Cuomo and Sliwa, that wasn't getting any traction. And on the other hand, the media and the youth that was not properly informed about socialism while they were getting the education. I mean, when you look, the majority of people with college degrees in New York City voted for Mamdani. It makes you wonder, what kind of degrees did they obtain? What did they major in? I mean, that they are not able to understand the basics of capitalism that is the basis of prosperity. But the left is always interested in creating a permanent underclass. And at this time, they are trying to approach the younger generation as the underclass that is not being served properly by the political system that we have, and that they are not getting a fair share. And I think the Republicans have a challenge ahead of them, and hopefully they're going to do a better job educating the voters out there.
Yeah, you bring up a lot of interesting points. Certainly politics is art and science, and you discussed the importance of strong candidates. Angie, as we start to finish up, there's two things I was hoping you could illuminate for us. One, this concept that Peter brought up about candidate charisma and the importance of that. I mean, these were blue states, all of them, and Democrats held serve there. But as we look at the government shutdown, does that at all change the calculus as to how the Republicans have to approach this stalemate?
Yes. Look, a lot of these affordability issues could have been addressed if we actually implemented the big, beautiful bill. So far, because of the government shutdown, where a lot of the big, beautiful bill items, well, they're just, they're kind of stalled at the moment. So I think President Trump is going to be asking for the filibuster to go away as soon as possible so that the government can actually work and some of these things can start happening. We're going to then start over the months, start hopefully seeing the affordability factors, the groceries, the gas, the insurance going down, because that's really what's pinching most voters right now, including myself. As far as the charisma goes, yes, I mean, Peter is absolutely right. We just elected a 34-year-old with almost no experience. He has to manage a city. I don't know if people understand what this job entails as New York City mayor. You're in charge of garbage. You're in charge of snow removal. You're in charge of crowds and protests, all those things. I don't know if he even has ever had a job to do any of those things, much less manage, hundreds of thousands of city workers. So this is going to be an amazing feat to watch. I think what he's trying to do is forget about experience, forget about whether or not I can do this job. Vote for me because I'm the right guy, I give the right vibes, and I'm, talking to you through social media. Well, that's just not going to work. That's not faking it till you make it. That is pure disaster waiting to happen. But I think Republicans, the winning strategy here, let him fail, and then we'll clean him up later. That's exactly what Rudy Giuliani did in the 90s.
Very interesting insights. Appreciate both of you joining us this morning. Peter Lumage, Angie Wong, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, great discussion there. And over to New Jersey, Democrat Mikey Sherrill is celebrating victory after defeating Republican Jack Ciattarelli in the governor's race there.
That's right. The Congresswoman turned governor-elect told supporters in East Brunswick, New Jersey last night that she's ready to take action on one of the campaign's biggest issues, the state's soaring utility costs.
I've spoken with thousands of you over this last year. I know your struggles. I know your hopes. I know your dreams. So serving you is worth any tough fight I have to take on, and I am incredibly honored to be your next governor. So I'm going to declare a state of emergency on day one to drive down your utility costs.
Sherrill also plans to support new nuclear projects, modernizing natural gas infrastructure, and expanding new solar and battery storage projects. She thanked her opponent, Jack Ciattarelli, and recognized him for, in her words, stepping up after she received a phone call from him.
Meanwhile, in his concession speech, Ciattarelli promised that work in New Jersey is not done after losing the governor's race. NTD's Washington correspondent Mari Otsu brings us more from the Ciattarelli watch party in Bridgewater, New Jersey, as well as President Trump's comments on the Republican losses on election night.
I thank all of you. I love you. The fight doesn't end. We fight for another day, but let us continue to do all that we can to fix the state that we all love. I know you do too. That's why you're here tonight.
GOP candidate Jack Ciattarelli says that the fight must continue after losing the New Jersey governor's race to Democrat Mikey Sherrill.
New Jersey's been home for 100 years, and it will continue to be my home. And I look forward to seeing you all and working together once again to make sure that we effectuate the kind of change we so desperately need here in this state that we also love so very, very much. Guys, thank you, thank you, thank you, and thank you.
At the top of his concession speech, made to a ballroom packed with his supporters, Ciattarelli announced that he'd called Sherrill to congratulate her. Some supporters told NTD that they still had fight left in them, while others weighed moving from New Jersey, saying God had forsaken their state.
I mean, she wants abortion at any stage, no restrictions, right up to the last day, even as suggested after birth. She wants taxpayers to pay for it. I do not want my tax dollars being used to finance infanticide, being used to finance murder.
No more sanctuary city, any city in New Jersey. Cops will not be handcuffed anymore.
The taxes are ridiculous, property taxes, energy costs, and I am so sick of having to buy my grocery bags. I got a closet full of them.
While Chitterelli lost the governor's race, Republican Assemblyman Mike Inganamort won his bid for a second term in Tuesday's election and told NTD.
But regardless, we have a duty in the legislature, and if we are going to be working with Mikey Sherrill as our governor, you bet we're going to hold her accountable.
President Trump, meanwhile, who endorsed Chitterelli, reacts to Democrats' projected election night wins, saying that Republicans lost the elections because of the government shutdown and because his name wasn't on the ticket. Reporting from Bridgewater, New Jersey, Mario Tsu, NTD News.
And the races in Virginia are in. Democrats retake the governor's mansion and several other key positions. NTD's Jack Bradley has more from Virginia Beach.
Virginia has chosen its new leadership. Behind me is where Republican incumbent Attorney General Jason Miyares conceded to his Democrat challenger Jay Jones. This was the closest race in the state. Miyares touted his success as Attorney General in cracking down on crime and fentanyl, and he wished Jay Jones success as the next Attorney General.
I wish Jay Jones the best in this new job. I know given the circumstances of the last 6 weeks, many of my supporters will find that difficult. But the reason I wish Jay the best is because we, the people of Virginia, need it. We need an Attorney General who will focus every day on keeping us safe. It is my sincere hope that Jay does that.
The crowd here just shocked.
You know, this was a race about decency. The whole country was watching, and this was a test for Virginia to court understood. And I think we're seeing a shift.
Now, Democrat Abigail Spanberger won the governor's race. She beat out her Republican challenger, the current Lieutenant Governor, Winsome Earl Sears. Virginia has for decades voted for a governor from the opposite party of the president. Spanberger is a 3-term congresswoman and former CIA officer, and she ran on anti-Doge cuts and anti-tariffs.
I also know that those who were supporting my opponent are disappointed today. And to those Virginians who did not vote for me, I want you to know that my goal and my intent is to serve all Virginians.
I want to thank you because you believed in me, you who voted for me and who worked so hard to make our dream for Virginia come true. I still want to continue to thank God for this journey and His grace that brought me again to this wonderful country, this wonderful Commonwealth.
In the lieutenant governor race, the race has been called for Democrat state lawmaker Ghazala Hashmi over her Republican opponent, talk show host John Reed. Now, this comes after the Virginia Senate on Friday voted to give the state legislature the power to redraw congressional districts. This would go before voters next year if it clears the next procedural votes. This passed on party lines with Democrats in support and Republicans against in Virginia. And this comes amid a wave of redistricting fights across the country seeking to claim more congressional seats for their own party. Reporting from Virginia Beach, Jack Bradley, NTD News.
Great reports there from Jack and Mari. California voters approved a plan yesterday to redraw the state's congressional map in Democrats' favor.
That's right. On California's Prop 50, 63.8%, as you can see, voted for it, and about a third voted no. Governor Gavin Newsom celebrated this news.
But what a night for the Democratic Party, a party that is in its ascendancy, a party that's on its toes, no longer on its heels, from coast to coast, sea to shining sea. But it was not just a victory tonight for the Democratic Party, it was a victory for the United States of America, for the people of this country.
The approval of Proposition 50 gives Democrats a shot at winning as many as 5 additional House seats. That's just enough to blunt Texas Republicans' move to redraw their own maps to pick up 5 GOP seats.
The measure was spearheaded by Newsom, and former President Barack Obama urged voters to pass it as well.
Congressional district boundaries are typically redrawn every 10 years to reflect population shifts documented in the census.
Mid-decade redistricting is unusual, except when a court order finds fault with the maps that are in place presently.
All right, still to come, lawmakers breaking records. The Senate stalemate has caused the longest government shutdown in the history of the U.S. as of today. President Trump again calling on Republicans to change the rules to bypass Democrats.
And at least 7 people are dead after a cargo plane crashed near Louisville's Muhammad Ali International Airport. What officials are saying about the disaster as an investigation is launched.
The Supreme Court hears arguments today on the legality of President Trump's global tariffs, sweeping measures imposed under emergency powers. We've got that and much more coming up.
Don't wait. Call now to find out about our Medicare plan.
Why do we have to sit through so many Medicare commercials this time of year? It's endless.
Good question, Edith. I'm glad you asked. We see so many commercials this time of year because it's the only time, other than special circumstances, when Medicare recipients can change their plan for Part C. Original Medicare only covers Parts A and B, but a Medicare Advantage plan has additional benefits that Original Medicare doesn't offer.
So now's the time to fill those spaces?
That's right, Archie. And every year, there are changes to what benefits you may receive from your Part C plan. Call right now to find out what plan best suits your needs.
It's easy, easy, don't delay. Pick up the phone and call today.
Call now for your free Medicare review.
1-833-469-1754. 1-833-469-1754.
You may now return to your regularly scheduled programming.
Hot meals, safe shelter, medical care, and love to more than 2,000 young people who sleep at a Covenant House every night. Homeless young people are afraid and alone. Your monthly donation right now will show them they are loved and safe.
I have no words to express how Covenant House changed my life.
Call or go online now and give just $19 a month. We'll send you this comforting blanket as a reminder of the difference you're making in a young person's life. Call or go online now to safeplacetosleep.org.
Welcome back. Just in this morning, someone drove into a crowd of pedestrians and cyclists on France's Oloron Island off the western coastline. At least 9 people were injured, according to the mayor and the interior minister there.
The local prosecutor said the suspect shouted Allahu Akbar when he was arrested, a phrase meaning God is the greatest in Arabic.
French media said that investigators are looking into the possibility of the suspect having mental health issues, as well as a history of petty crime and drug-related offenses. Keep you updated there. Next, a fiery cargo plane crash at Louisville Muhammad Ali International Airport in Kentucky has left at least 7 people dead and around a dozen injured.
The UPS jet was bound for Honolulu when it went down moments after takeoff. The cause of the crash is still under investigation, but here's what we know so far.
It was just after 5 o'clock Tuesday evening when UPS Flight 2976, a McDonnell Douglas MD-11 cargo jet, lifted off from UPS Worldport at Louisville Muhammad Ali International Airport. Moments later, disaster. Eyewitness video showed flames on the plane's left wing and a trail of smoke. The jet then crashing and exploding in a huge fireball in an industrial area just outside the airport. Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear last night confirmed the crash and said state and federal teams were immediately dispatched to the scene.
At approximately 5:14 p.m. Eastern Time tonight, UPS Flight 2976 from Louisville, Kentucky to Honolulu, Hawaii, an MD-11 with 3 crew members on board, was involved in a catastrophic crash here in Louisville adjacent to our airport.
Beshear said the impact and explosion destroyed parts of nearby businesses in an industrial area, including a petroleum recycling facility and an auto parts shop. Louisville Mayor Craig Greenberg confirmed fatalities early in the investigation, with first responders still combing through wreckage and debris.
As of right now, we know there are 4 confirmed fatalities, and we believe there are additional fatalities as well. But we still have first responders who are actively searching the scene right now. So we will continue to provide more information on victims as it becomes available.
That toll later rose to at least 7. Beshear said at least 11 were injured, some very significantly. The governor said the National Transportation Safety Board would be in charge of the investigation and asked residents to remain cautious near the crash zone. Beshear said the crash was especially violent and urged Kentuckians to support the families waiting for word on loved ones.
Anybody who has seen the images and the video know how violent this crash is. And there are a lot of families that are going to be waiting and wondering for a period of time. We're going to try to get them that information as fast as we can. But if this is a family you know, please give them your support. Please give them your prayers. Please give them your love.
Mayor Greenberg echoed that message, making special mention of the UPS workers.
Send my prayers to our entire UPS family across Louisville and across the country. UPS is such an important part of our Louisville family, and we know it's a tough evening, as it will be in the days ahead.
UPS confirmed it has paused operations at its massive Worldport facility, which sorts over 400,000 packages an hour.
Our thoughts are with the families of those victims as well. Meanwhile, operations at Reagan National Airport have resumed after a bomb threat temporarily halted flights for about an hour there. The threat yesterday was directed at a United Airlines flight arriving from Houston, prompting authorities to suspend all air traffic as the situation was investigated.
Passengers were evacuated after the plane landed safely and was moved to a secure area while bomb squads searched the aircraft. The FBI says no hazardous materials were found, and a flight tracking site showed more than 300 flights were delayed as the busy airport worked to return to normal.
And the ongoing government shutdown sets a new record at 36 days. It's now the longest in U.S. history. NTD congressional correspondent Melina Weisskopf joins us live to discuss. Good morning, Melina. What a morning it is. Where do things stand right now? Is there a change of course coming that could end this shutdown?
Yeah, I will say first, Steph, it does certainly feel like it's been 63 days since the shutdown started. 36, though. President Trump is certainly pushing for changes on this front. He says he feels the reasons that Republicans lost the elections yesterday was because of this ongoing shutdown. In a post, he said Trump wasn't on the ballot and shutdown were the two reasons that Republicans lost elections tonight. That was late last night. And he said that the midterms will also be bad for Republicans if they don't change the Senate rules to bypass Democrats on this. Now, in multiple late night posts on Truth Social, he again called on Republicans to end the filibuster in order to bypass the Democrat votes needed to fund the government. Now, the filibuster is what requires 60 votes in the Senate to pass most legislation, which means with the current makeup of the Senate, 7 Democrats are needed to pass most legislation. Some Democrats have joined Republicans on the short-term funding bill, but we know that's not been enough to get it across the finish line. Now, Republican leaders, though, have brushed off Trump's calls to end the filibuster, and they're hesitant for good reason, because some are concerned about what this would mean when they lose power and Democrats are back in control. If they hold a slim majority that like Republicans have right now, Democrats would be able to pass their agenda easier without Republican buy-in. So that's why they're hesitant to take up Trump's offer on this and go ahead and drive that through. But pretty soon, lawmakers will be looking at a new bill that will extend government funding further, because now we're here in the beginning of November. We're almost at the end of the rope with regards to how long the current funding bill was supposed to last until the end of this month. But it's unclear at this point if anything in that new bill will be different beyond the extended timeline, Steph.
So talk about the consequences that are unfolding as this stalemate stretches on.
Right. Aside from the stalled government work and the paychecks that aren't going out, the airspace is experiencing more pressure. Secretary Duffy, the transportation secretary, said that they may need to close certain parts of the airspace if this isn't worked out by next week. Listen to him.
So if you bring us to a week from today, Democrats, you will see mass chaos. You will see mass flight delays. You'll see mass cancellations, and you may see us close certain parts of the airspace because we just cannot manage it because we don't have the air traffic controllers.
And Melina, there's talk that bipartisan discussions are underway. Does that appear to be making any difference?
It's unclear at this point, Steph. They've been talking for quite some time, the past few weeks. Those who are involved, though, which is a small group of senators, rank and file senators, not leadership, are tight-lipped about what direction those talks are headed or the details of any deals that they're working out right now. Some of those that are involved in these talks predict that the shutdown could come to an end by this week, as Democrats are eyeing a deal with Republicans. But of course, we'll have to wait and see the details of this and if it actually materializes. Steph.
Much to watch and many impacts watching as well. Thank you so much, NTD congressional correspondent Melina Weisskopf. And President Trump is set to speak at the America Business Forum in Miami today. That's right. The event is drawing some influential speakers for 2 days of talks on global growth. Trump will deliver remarks at 1 p.m. at Miami's Kaseya Center and then return to Washington later in the day. Other speakers on the forum's agenda include Amazon's founder, Jeff Bezos, JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon, and former Google executive Eric Schmidt. The program also lists soccer star Lionel Messi and tennis champion Serena Williams. Argentine President Javier Milei and Nobel Peace Prize winner Maria Corina Machado are also on the program, possibly appearing virtually. Before heading south, Trump plans to meet Senate Republicans for breakfast at the White House. The Supreme Court will hear arguments today on the legality of President Trump's global tariffs, policies he imposed earlier this year under emergency powers to combat trade imbalances and fentanyl trafficking. NTD's Daniel Monahan has a closer look at the cases and what's at stake.
2 cases, Learning Resources versus Trump and Trump versus VOS selections, will test whether the 1977 International Emergency Economic Powers Act actually gives presidents authority to levy tariffs. Lower courts have ruled against the administration, saying Congress never explicitly granted that power. Trump established the fentanyl tariffs in February, targeting Mexico, Canada, and China for allegedly failing to stop the flow of illegal opioids into the U.S. His executive order declared that inaction created a national emergency and a public health crisis, citing hundreds of thousands of overdose deaths and the toll on American communities. Then in April, Trump declared an emergency over long-standing U.S. trade deficits, arguing they've hollowed out manufacturing, weakened supply chains, and left the defense industry dependent on foreign adversaries. Trump said on CBS 60 Minutes that the country will be immeasurably hurt if the High Court rules against his administration.
With China, they were, very strongly threatening us, frankly, with the rare earths. And then I said, well, if you're going to play that card, I'm going to put a 100% tariff on over and above what you're already paying, which was 55%, which was very high.
The president says tariffs are essential for protecting the country.
Tariffs are national security. If you take away the right to tariff, and remember this, tariffs have been used against us.
And can you just answer that? Look at what President Trump has been able to do with the leverage and the power of tariffs. He's been able to sign peace deals all over the world and end global conflicts and literally save lives. He's been able to bring in trillions of dollars of investments into our country.
The White House says it has a backup plan if the High Court rules against it.
I'll tell you, the White House is always preparing for Plan B. It would be imprudent of the president's advisors not to prepare for such a situation. With that said, we are 100% confident in the president and his team's legal argument and the merits of the law in this case.
Challengers, including states and private companies, say the tariffs amount to unconstitutional executive overreach and could cost businesses billions. The outcome could reshape U.S. trade policy for years and determine how much power future presidents have to act unilaterally on the economy. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says he plans to attend oral arguments, speaking on Fox News.
I'm actually going to go and sit, hopefully in the front row, and listen, have a ringside seat. And Jesse, this is a matter of national security.
President Trump says the Supreme Court cases on his sweeping emergency tariffs are a, quote, life and death moment for the country. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Thanks to Daniel for that report. And staying with that, joining us to discuss the implications of today's Supreme Court's case is Jill Homan, Deputy Director of Trade and Economic Policy at the American First Policy Institute. Thank you for joining us this morning, Jill. Is there a legal definition for a, quote, emergency under the 1977 International Emergency Economic Powers Act?
Thank you for having me. And as the president has explained, this is, and he called it the most critical Supreme Court case ever. And as you describe, the president has declared 2 emergencies. We have 2 crises. The first of which is we're running a trade deficit over $1 trillion. It's completely unsustainable, and that means that we are weakening our country. We're borrowing from foreign nations, many of which are adversaries, in order to fund this consumption-driven economy. So that's a trade deficit. The second crisis is the fentanyl that's been flooding across our borders, and it's become the number one killer of young adults ages 18 to 44. So as a result of these two crises, the president has declared an emergency on these crises, and that gives him the authority to be able to implement this tariffs under the provisions of IEEPA. And that's also what's going to be discussed at the Supreme Court case, which at AFPI, we filed amicus brief in support of the president having the authority, and we're confident that the president is going to come out on top once the Supreme Court justices hear the case today.
And can you explain the concept of the tariffs in terms of national security, which the president framed very strongly in his 60 Minutes interview?
Certainly. And so what the president done, and as I had mentioned before, is by being able to implement the tariffs, and he had cited the example of China, what he's doing is stemming the flow of fentanyl and opioids, across the border. And so he's been using it as a tool in his trade negotiations and in his negotiations with these countries. And that's what we've seen actually as of just last night. The president reduced an additional tariff from 20% to 10% because of additional concessions that China has made in recognizing that it needs to play a stronger role to prohibit the elements that make fentanyl and opioids from coming into our country. And so the president was able to negotiate that provision and therefore was able to lower an additional tariff from 20% to 10%.
Yeah, and you used the example of adversary China. But even with friendly nations, the U.S. for a very long time, many decades, has been subject to not only unreciprocal tariffs, but also unreciprocal market access. Can you help describe what the economic impact that this has had on the U.S.'s economy and the livelihood for working Americans?
Exactly, and so many people are assuming that we started from a place of reciprocal tariffs, and that's just not the case, as you pointed out. So the United States was providing unfettered access to our markets, but in turn, even our trading partners were implementing and requiring the United States companies to pay tariffs when they access their markets, which when you say that to all Americans and most Americans, they just think, well, that's not fair. And that's what reciprocity really is about. And as a result of these tariffs over the last 12 months, now granted, only a portion of the time President Trump was in office, but these tariffs have generated close to $200 billion. And that's enough, for example, to fund the U.S. Army. And so these tariffs are generating revenue, but really they're not an end in and of itself. They're also a means in order for our president to have the authority to go out and negotiate strong trade deals, which we heard from Caroline Leavitt describe. And so these trade deals have provided and required countries to reduce non-tariff barriers, so meaning to enable American companies to be able to sell more overseas. And they've also included elements of our trading partners having investment commitments to invest and expand companies in the United States, which will create more American jobs. And this is all about moving from a consumption-based economy to a production economy, one that grows jobs in the country. Because what we saw since China's ascension into the WTO and from it receiving the most favored nation status back in 2001, that America has lost hundreds of thousands and by some accounts, some have said up to 5 million jobs. And so that has hollowed out what are blue-collar jobs, and has also really hurt our capacity in our supply chain and our national security. And so by focusing on building up our domestic capabilities, we're able to shore up critical supply chains. And so we've seen that in conversations about rare earth and critical minerals, which it started and the technology started in the United States. And over time, companies sold, and then ultimately that ended up being a significant power and an industry in China. And so here we are in a very weak position on this critical industry. And we've seen the same thing play out with shipbuilding. And that's why, for example, our trading ally of South Korea, a key component of that deal negotiation included an investment of $150 billion in rebuilding America's shipbuilding capacity. And so the president, think of this, the president is using tariffs as leverage in order to secure market access, which grows American companies and American jobs, and also it does generate revenue, but also to provide investment opportunities, which also, when you have greenfield investments and when you have other countries that are buying more planes, for example, that leads to more American jobs, higher wages, and ultimately protects American workers.
Yeah, you mentioned how the trillions of dollars of investment that has come into the U.S. would not have been possible without the tariffs because they would just continue producing overseas and then just shipping in. But with the threat of the tariff, it's more viable for them to invest in production in America. So I want you to contrast what you see as some of Trump's greatest wins with the tariffs and how potential inflationary concerns may or may not be mitigated.
Yes, so really 3 points about the wins. First of which is the tariffs have generated revenue. And so to the extent they're generating revenue, we're facing as a country actually it's now $38 trillion debt. That's $110,000 for every man, woman, and child. And so to the extent we're able to generate more revenue, it provides us an ability to, pay down the debt, reduce taxes, and really strengthen our country. And so that's the first point. Secondly is as I mentioned, by implementing the tariffs, it enables the president to have the leverage in order to reduce and require countries to reduce non-tariff barriers. And so we've seen that with companies being able to sell more abroad in certain instances, particularly with our agriculture industry. And then thirdly, when these trade agreements and trade frameworks include an investment commitment, those investment commitments enable more companies to expand and hire American workers. And so just to give you one example is within his Asia trip, if you add up all of the investment commitments, that totals about $2 trillion. And if we expand that and say that investment comes over the next 10 years, that's about $200 billion a year. And there's academic studies that have said for every billion that's about invested, that's about 6,000 jobs. And so what this means is at $200 billion a year, you're talking about over 1 million jobs that this one trip could bring back to this country. And so that's the significance. And I understand the point about inflationary and the critique on that. And what I would point out is let's look at the data from past years, particularly when the president was in office. And we saw in 2018 and 2019 that the movement on prices were just a few tenths of a percent. And I think all of us will appreciate that this was the greatest economy when the president was in office, and wages were high, the stock market was high. And so I think most people would agree that if we can get strong wages and our investments and our retirement savings can grow, if we have just a short-term movement on prices, it's something that we see as a means to an end. And that's really what we're seeing with the price movement is it's not significant, and we don't expect it to be very significant. And we expect the benefits of these trade agreements to far outweigh any short-term inflationary movement.
Well, we've been watching the Supreme Court today with great interest. Appreciate your analysis. Jill Homan, thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me.
Gosh, so much to dig into there, and we will certainly be keeping you updated as the day unfolds and the results come out in the weeks to come. But Meantime, it is beginning to look a lot like Christmas in Germany.
Okay.
That's at least for the country's fir tree farmers.
Yeah, growers have started harvesting the first trees of the season, kicking off a festive and busy time of the year.
Yes, it's true. Our sales motto is "It's Christmas all year round here." It's actually almost Christmas for us right now. The harvest is beginning, which of course means things are getting a little hectic. When families come with their children, grandparents, and everyone else, and they choose their Christmas tree together, you can feel the atmosphere, and it's really impressive and makes you happy too.
Very sweet. Now, farmers in Germany's western Sauerland region began felling trees this week with less than 2 months to go before Christmas. The hilly region produces around a third of Germany's Christmas trees, including the Norman fir, which is the nation's bestseller.
The Norman fir. Now, most trees are sold in cities, but now many families have started to head to local farms to cut their own tree down, and some tree farms even offer mulled wine and snacks. Germans have been celebrating Christmas with decorated trees for centuries, and in the 19th century, that tradition spread elsewhere in Europe, and immigrants brought the custom to the U.S.
They really are beautiful trees. Gosh, beautiful to see. All right, well, that's all we've got for you for now, but stay with us. There is so much more coming up. See you soon.
I debate all day. It's what I do. But there are some things that are undebatable, like your mental health, my own mental health. I was in a dark place when my brother passed away in a car accident. I've never been more devastated than the day I lost my mom. I was depressed, miserable, in ways I never imagined. I reached out, and my sisters came, my pastor, my therapist. They helped me get through it. I found that the more I spoke up, the healthier my mind became. The chaos that was in me began to subside. I was more focused, clear. When you love your mind, you can go so much further. That's not up for debate. Find mental health resources at loveyourmindtoday.org.
August was born 3 pounds, 9.8 ounces. When I first saw him, it was like a whole range of emotions, joy, sadness. There's gonna be obstacles. You're gonna feel like, why is it happening to me? And you're gonna realize you're not the only one. There's no perfect way. Your own way will be the perfect way. You're gonna protect it with all your might. Just seeing him happy, it's just joy, you know? I look through his eyes, I can envision like a whole future with him already. To throw the first football to him, give him ice cream for the first time. Oh man, he can smile now. I'm happy because he's advancing in life, you know, he's growing. Being a young dad, it's not giving up, it's shifting. My life is now devoted to his life.
Hey, boss. Okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
You sure?
I said I'm fine.
Hey, son.
Hey, Pop.
You can talk to me.
It's been really, really hard for me.
Welcome to NTD Good Morning.
Here's today's top stories. Democrats won big on election night with their party's candidates winning the ballot across several key races in New York City, New Jersey, and Virginia.
And over in California, voters approve a plan redrawing congressional districts in Democrats' favor. Governor Gavin Newsom hailed the move as a win for both his party and the nation.
At least 7 people are dead after a cargo plane crashed near Louisville's Muhammad Ali International Airport. What officials are saying about the disaster as an investigation is launched.
The Supreme Court hears arguments today on the legality of President Trump's global tariffs, sweeping measures imposed under emergency powers.
Lawmakers breaking records. The Senate stalemate has caused the longest government shutdown in the history of the U.S. as of today. President Trump again calling on Republicans to change the rules to bypass Democrats.
This is NTD Good Morning. Live from our global headquarters in New York City, here are Stephanie Cox and Carrie Dunst.
Good morning. Great to have you with us.
Today is Wednesday, November 5th. This is NTD Good Morning. And topping the news this morning is, of course, the election night. What a night it was.
Indeed. The Democrats with a clean sweep across all of the open contests.
Major battles there. And we have many of the results projected and coming in. Here are the latest. In Virginia, the governor's race, we have Abigail Spanberger, the Democratic candidate, projected to win with 57.5%. That's with 97% of the votes in. Winsome Earl Sears trailing behind there. Meanwhile, the lieutenant governor's race in Virginia with Ghazala Hashmi at 55.6% at this point. Again, John Reed, the Republican candidate, hovering around 45%. And we have Jason Miyares. He got around 46%. So there was a common theme there shared among the Republican outcomes so far. Of course, Jay Jones there topping the race with 53.1% at this point.
And in the New Jersey governor's race, Mikey Sherrill takes 56.2% against her Republican adversary, Jack Ciattarelli, who came in just over 40%. And in the much hyped three-way New York City mayoral race, New York, of course, U.S.'s largest city, Mamdani wins comfortably, outpacing both the combination of his two adversaries. And just over half of voters, as we just saw, chose Zohran Mamdani in a historic election that saw the highest turnout in a New York City election in 50 years, with more than 2 million New Yorkers going out to the polls to cast their ballot. Take a listen to some of Mamdani's supporters.
And why did you choose to support Zohran?
I think that we all deserve to have a dignified and beautiful life here in New York City, and that New York City is not just for billionaires, but for everyday working people.
I'm supporting Zohran Mamdani because I believe we should live in a city of affordable housing with affordable housing.
Do you feel that Zohran will be able to make good on the promises he made, like for affordable housing, freezing the rent, fast and free buses?
I hope so.
As mayor-elect, Zohran Mamdani prepares to take his seat in City Hall. His opponents are warning about his socialist policies, with Curtis Sliwa saying the movement is not over yet.
Our Washington correspondent, Luis Eduardo Martinez, came up to New York City to Cuomo's watch party last night to hear from both his Democratic and even his Republican supporters about why this is, quote, a caution flag that we are heading down a dangerous, dangerous road.
New York City has elected its new mayor, Zohran Mamdani. The 34-year-old New Yorker will be on 2026 the new mayor of the largest city in the United States. It remains to be seen if he will be able to implement all the promises that got him elected.
New York, tonight you have delivered a mandate for change. A mandate for a new kind of politics.
And this campaign was necessary to make that point. A caution flag that we are heading down a dangerous, dangerous road. Well, we made that point.
Andrew Cuomo's campaign attracted not only anti-socialist Democrats and independents, but also Republicans who did not want to see a socialist leader elected to be the next mayor of the city.
The other candidate, like Zohran Mamdani, I think he's dangerous. We don't know what he's going to do to the city, and that made me and also my friends who are like huge Trump supporters all like to decide to support Andrew Cuomo in this election because it's not about parties.
Jewish Americans living in New York City also sent a warning to New Yorkers and to the rest of the country of what it means that Zohran Mamdani is going to be the next mayor of New York City.
As a Jew in New York City, realizing that Zohran Mamdani, he doesn't like us. And he is someone who is, call him a wolf wearing a sheep's mask. And he's out to get us by slogans, by words. And he's fooling all the people who are in New York City that are uneducated.
A tearful Curtis Sliwa, the Republican candidate, sent a message to the victorious candidate, Zohran Mamdani, that his movement is not over and that the Guardian Angels will be here in New York to watch for the safety of New Yorkers and the future of this city.
If you try to implement socialism, if you try to render our police weak and impotent, if you forsake the people's public safety, we're not only organizing, but we are mobilizing, and we will become the mayor-elect and his supporters' worst enemies.
New York City has now elected its first Muslim mayor, a Democratic socialist, and it remains to be seen what lessons the Democratic Party learns from these elections and takes on to the midterm elections next year. Reporting from New York City, New York, Luis Eduardo Martinez, NTD News.
Thanks to Louise for that report. And the races in Virginia are in. Democrats retake the governor's mansion and several other key positions. We have NTD's Jack Bradley from Virginia Beach.
Virginia has chosen its new leadership. Behind me is where Republican incumbent Attorney General Jason Miyares conceded to his Democrat challenger Jay Jones. This was the closest race in the state. Miyares touted his success as Attorney General in cracking down on crime and fentanyl, and he wished Jay Jones success as the next Attorney General.
I wish Jay Jones the best in this new job. I know given the circumstances of the last 6 weeks, many of my supporters will find that difficult. But the reason I wish Jay the best is because we, the people of Virginia, need it. We need an Attorney General who will focus every day on keeping us safe. It is my sincere hope that Jay does that.
The crowd here just shocked.
You know, this was a race about decency. The whole country was watching, and this was a test for Virginia to elect a Attorney General that stood for core values that we understood. And I think we're seeing a shift.
Now, Democrat Abigail Spanberger won the governor's race. She beat out her Republican challenger, the current Lieutenant Governor, Winsome Earl Sears. Virginia has for decades voted for a governor from the opposite party of the president. Spanberger is a 3-term congresswoman and former CIA officer, and she ran on anti-DOGE cuts and anti-tariffs.
I also know that those who were supporting my opponent are disappointed today. And to those Virginians who did not vote for me, I want you to know that my goal and my intent is to serve all Virginians.
I want to thank you because you believed in me, you who voted for me and who worked so hard to make our dream for Virginia come true. I still want to continue to thank God for this journey and His grace that brought me again to this wonderful country, this wonderful Commonwealth.
In the lieutenant governor race, the race has been called for Democrat state lawmaker Ghazala Hashmi over her Republican opponent, talk show host John Reed. Now, this comes after the Virginia Senate on Friday voted to give the state legislature the power to redraw congressional districts. This would go before voters next year if it clears the next procedural votes. This passed on party lines with Democrats in support and Republicans against in Virginia. And this comes amid a wave of redistricting fights across the country seeking to claim more congressional seats for their own party. Reporting from Virginia Beach, Jack Bradley, NTD News.
Thank you, Jack. Yes, Democrats saw decisive victories across all major Virginia races yesterday, significantly expanding their legislative power and influencing the state's redistricting future. Joining us for an in-depth look now is Victoria Manning, senior investigator with Restoration of America and a Virginia resident herself. Victoria, good morning. Good to have you with us today. First, your response to last night's results overall.
Good morning. You know, it was pretty shocking, and I think it was a bit of a dark day for Republicans in our state. Democrats are going to now have complete, full control of our legislature from the top levels, governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, and they increased their lead in the House of Delegates from one seat majority to 13. So they're going to be able to push through their far left agenda that they've been bragging about and perhaps most shocking is that Jay Jones, the man who wished 2 bullets to the head of his political rival, will now be Virginia's top cop. And I believe that's just shocking for every Virginian and every American.
Not only that, but considering the scandal that he faced that you just mentioned, plus his policy stances are quite different to his opponent. And how do you see Virginia, the reasons that Virginia backed him?
You know, I can only believe that this is a pushback against the Trump administration and the Republicans having control at the federal level. We see this often in Virginia, that it will be an election that sides with whoever is not in office at the federal level. So I think that we are seeing that happen again in our state. And I think it's a bit of a referendum against the Republicans at the federal level.
Now, we saw Trump posting to Truth Social saying, you know, some of the reasons that the Virginia races went to Democrats on the whole was that Trump wasn't on the ballot and the shutdown. What are we looking at overall in terms of what Virginians particularly are dealing with, and whether that rings true for you?
So I do believe that the shutdown did have an impact, and I think that that was probably a plan by the Democrats to keep our government shut down. It's going to be interesting to see if the government's going to open up now that the Virginia and New Jersey races are over. We do have a lot of government employees that live here in our state, and I do believe that that impacted it. I think that we're going to see a swing to the far left in our state, unfortunately. Democrats have pushed for strong gun laws where they want to disarm law-abiding citizens while going soft on criminals. And I think that they have also shown that they want to become a sanctuary state for illegal aliens. Abigail Spanberger has said that she will rescind Governor Youngkin's executive order that requires state police to cooperate with ICE. So I think we're going to be seeing some big changes here in our state over the next 4 years.
Certainly, and as you mentioned, Governor-elect Abigail Spanberger, she ran on that particular platform regarding illegal immigration, but also on anti-DOGE cuts and anti-tariffs platform as well. What policies do you think really made voters show up for her? Because I know you've written about the pain that Virginians have been experiencing around the illegal immigration crisis there. How do you see their response to her policies?
You know, I think that she wasn't answering a lot of hard questions. I think she avoided a lot of questions, a lot of the social questions, such as whether or not she supports boys and girls locker rooms and boys and girls sports. She would never come out and answer that. And so I think that we're going to see her true beliefs as she steps into the governor's mansion. She early on tried to paint herself as a moderate, but if you dive into her platform, she is an advocate for free childcare and pushing socialist type policies, which is going to increase the taxes on Virginians. Someone has to pay for that. And Governor Youngkin prided himself on bringing businesses and jobs to Virginia, and we were seeing that. And I'm fearful that we're going to see a reversal of that in our state.
And you mentioned earlier the issue of redistricting really coming into the fore as well this election. Democrats expanded their majority in the House of Delegates to at least 60 seats. That marks their largest majority in decades and essentially greenlights a new election map that the state Senate has just passed. How do you see the significance of that here and also across the nation?
It's going to be huge. Virginians will have an opportunity to stop the redistricting effort. It will have to be a constitutional amendment on the ballot, so the voters will have to decide that. And just several years ago, voters decided overwhelmingly, 66%, that redistricting should be a bipartisan effort, and they approved a constitutional amendment on that. And Democrats now want to reverse that. So it will be a time for the people to decide, and we'll see if Virginians swing back to being moderate as they historically have been, or if they've become more like California. I've heard Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earl-Sears say that if Democrats get control, we will be California East. And that's something that Virginians will have to decide at the ballot box when these referendums come before them.
Certainly, and there are, of course, many elections to come, so the story continues. Thank you so much, Victoria Manning. Good to see you.
Thank you.
All right, New Jersey Democrat Mikey Sherrill is celebrating victory after defeating Republican Jack Ciattarelli in the governor's race there.
The congresswoman turned governor-elect told supporters in East Brunswick, New Jersey last night that she's ready to take action on one of the campaign's biggest issues, the state's soaring utility costs.
I've spoken with thousands of you over this last year. I know your struggles. I know your hopes. I know your dreams. So serving you is worth any tough fight I have to take on, and I am incredibly honored to be your next governor. So I'm going to declare a state of emergency on day one to drive down your utility costs.
Sherrill also plans to support new nuclear projects, modernizing natural gas infrastructure, and expanding new solar and battery storage projects. She thanked her opponent, Jack Ciattarelli, and recognized him for, in her words, stepping up after she received a phone call from him.
Meanwhile, in his concession speech, Ciattarelli promised that work in New Jersey is not done after losing the governor's race. NTD's Washington correspondent Mari Otsu brings us more from the Ciattarelli Watch Party in Bridgewater, New Jersey, as well as President Trump's comments on the Republican losses on election night.
I thank all of you. I love you. The fight doesn't end. We fight for another day, but let us continue to do all that we can to fix the state that we all love. I know you do too. That's why you're here tonight.
GOP candidate Jack Ciattarelli says that the fight must continue after losing the New Jersey governor's race to Democrat Mikey Sherrill.
New Jersey's been home for 100 years, and it will continue to be my home. And I look forward to seeing you all and working together once again to make sure that we effectuate the kind of change we so desperately need here in this state that we also love so very, very much. Guys, thank you, thank you, thank you, and thank you.
At the top of his concession speech, made to a ballroom packed with his supporters, Ciattarelli announced that he'd called Sherrill to congratulate her. Some supporters told NTD that they still had fight left in them, while others weighed moving from New Jersey, saying God had forsaken their state.
I mean, she wants abortion at any stage, no restrictions, right up to the last day, even as suggested after birth. She wants taxpayers to pay for it. I do not want my tax dollars being used to finance infanticide, being used to finance murder.
No more sanctuary city, any city in New Jersey. Cops will not be handcuffed anymore.
The taxes are ridiculous, property taxes, energy costs, and I am so sick of having to buy my grocery bags. I got a closet full of them.
While Ciattarelli lost the governor's race, Republican Assemblyman Mike Inganamort won his bid for a second term in Tuesday's election and told NTD.
But regardless, we have a duty in the legislature, and if we are going to be working with Mikey Sherrill as our governor, you bet we're going to hold her accountable.
President Trump, meanwhile, who endorsed Ciattarelli, reacts to Democrats' projected election night wins, saying that Republicans lost the elections because of the government shutdown and because his name wasn't on the ticket. Reporting from Bridgewater, New Jersey, Mari Otsu, NTD News.
Thank you, Mari. Meanwhile, California voters approved a plan yesterday to redraw the state's congressional map in Democrats' favor.
That's right. As you can see here, based on the data, the yeses took almost 2/3 to the noes 1/3, and Governor Gavin Newsom celebrated this news.
But what a night for the Democratic Party, a party that is in its ascendancy, a party that's on its toes, no longer on its heels, from coast to coast, sea to shining sea. But it was not just a victory tonight for the Democratic Party, it was a victory for the United States of America, for the people of this country.
The approval of Proposition 50 gives Democrats a shot at winning as many as 5 additional House seats. That's just enough to blunt Texas Republicans' move to redraw their own maps to pick up 5 GOP seats.
And the measure was spearheaded by Newsom. Former President Barack Obama jumped in and he urged voters to pass it as well.
Congressional district boundaries are typically redrawn every 10 years to reflect population shifts documented in the census.
Mid-decade redistricting, though, is unusual, except when a court order finds fault with the maps that are presently in place.
Coming up, lawmakers breaking records. The Senate stalemate has caused the longest government shutdown in U.S. history as of today. President Trump again calling on Republicans to change the rules to bypass Democrats.
And at least 7 people are dead after a cargo plane crashed near Louisville's Muhammad Ali International Airport. What officials are saying about the disaster as an investigation is launched.
The Supreme Court hears arguments today on the legality of President Trump's global tariffs, sweeping measures imposed under emergency powers. That and more coming up.
I can't get a hold of my mom.
I'm sure it's nothing.
I've called her 5 times.
I'm sure she's fine.
Is Grandma okay? Help! I've fallen and I can't get up.
Don't worry, ma'am. We're sending help right now.
Hello?
Hello, this is Life Alert. Your mother had an emergency, and we dispatched paramedics to her home.
Oh my gosh, what happened?
She had a fall, but don't worry. She is safe, and the paramedics are helping her right now.
Thank you.
Life Alert saves a life every 11 minutes. With one simple touch of a button, Life Alert sends help immediately. Whether it's to report a fall, a medical emergency, or an intruder, Life Alert sends first responders fast.
For a free brochure, call 800-382-9846. 800-382-9846. That's 800-382-9846.
This land, our America, built on hard work, determination, and grit. Sometimes the days run long, but hope, it never runs out, even when the food does, for America's veterans, working parents, even kids. Because in every corner of every town, even yours, millions of hardworking neighbors are facing a hunger crisis, many for the very first time. In this land of plenty, affording food shouldn't require second jobs and third shifts or choosing between your groceries and bills. Today, you can help change that. Call or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month, less than 63 cents a day, to help every neighbor get the food they urgently need. Because taking care of each other is what makes America strong. We're Feeding America. Not just a name, but an action. Working with over 200 local food banks like the ones in your community. And demand is soaring.
You go to the grocery store, you spend $100, and $100 is a new $20 bill.
Even with 2 full-time jobs, it's hard to make ends meet.
These are tough times, but when we stand together, we become the very best of a strong America. Please call or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org. Just $19 a month can feed a family today. And your first gift can double an impact. Plus, we'll send you this free canvas bag as a reminder of the hope you're delivering.
When it comes down to it, it's about taking care of your family first and the loved ones that you need to provide for.
Because you're not just giving food, you're fueling resilience for people across the nation. You're feeding America. Call or go online today to helpfeedingamerica.org, and your gift can double an impact.
And President Trump is hosting Republican senators at the White House for a breakfast. Let's head over there live now to see the president and what he has to say.
To be a victory. It was very Democrat areas, but I don't think it was good for Republicans. I don't think it was good. I'm not sure it was good for anybody. But we had an interesting evening, and we learned a lot. And we're going to talk about that, and I'll say a few remarks, and then after that I'll ask the press to leave. The press has been very, very nice to us the last couple of months. They were great to us in terms of the foreign visits with China, Japan, South Korea, Malaysia, and they were actually terrific. So I want to thank you for that. I'm sure you'll get back to your normal ways soon. But we did a great job over in China, and we've done a great job in turning off wars. We stopped 8 wars, and we have 1 to go, as you probably know, and that'll get stopped also. but we've done a great job. So it's really been an honor to do it, and I did it with many of the people in this room. Every one of you I know, and every one of you I like. I like our leaders. I like everybody. But I thought we'd have a discussion after the press leaves about what last night represented and what we should do about it, and also about the shutdown and how that relates to last night. I think if you read the pollsters, the shutdown was a big factor, negative for the Republicans, and that was a big factor. And they say that I wasn't on the ballot was the biggest factor, but I don't know about that, but I was honored that they said that. And I just want to thank everybody for being here, and a very special thanks to Vice President J.D. Vance, who's doing a terrific job. J.D., thank you. As well as the Senate leadership team that has been working very hard, working really, I will tell you, nobody's working any harder representing the American people, including Senator John Thune. John, thank you. Great job. John, thank you very much. Senator Tom Cotton, wherever you may be. Tom, thank you. Thank you, Tom. Thank you. Senator Shelley Moore Capito, who's been very involved. Thank you, Senator James Langford from one of my favorite states. 77 out of 77. 77 out of 77. Reagan was 56. That was the record. We got every one of them. Thank you, James. And a fantastic friend of mine and an incredible advocate during the election a year ago, Tim Scott. Thank you, Tim. So as you know, we are in the midst of a disastrous Democrat-created government shutdown, and it is Democrat-created, but I don't think they're getting really the blame that they should. That's now officially the longest shutdown in American history. The Democrat radicals in the Senate have shown zero interest in reopening the government, and I don't think they'll act so soon. A lot of people disagree. I've been saying for the last 30 days, we've had 4 or 5 different points. Yes, sir, they're going to get it right now. We should have it done in a day. I've heard that about 4 times. I heard it after Kings. They said I was a king. And I heard it after Kings. I heard it after a couple of other moments in time. And I said, no, I don't believe so. And now I heard it's after the election. I don't believe so. I think they will. I think they're kamikaze pilots. I just got back from Japan. I talked about the kamikaze pilots. I think these guys are kamikaze. They'll take down the country if they have to. So I don't think so. Millions of Americans are going to be without SNAP benefits. And I will say about SNAP benefits, so when I was president, we had $7 billion worth, and now they have many times that, because these benefits were given to anybody that asked, and they're up to, I hear, just many times, $47 billion. So it wasn't the purpose of SNAP. It was for people that really had problems, down and out, people that really had problems. But during Biden, they gave it to anybody that wanted it. I think it's something you have to talk about because the numbers are incredible. But countless public servants are now not being paid, and the air traffic control system is under increasing strain. We must get the government back open soon, and really immediately. We have to get it up. We have the hottest economy we've ever had, and it's affecting the stock market now a little bit. But the stock market, as of Friday, has hit many record highs during the last 9 months, many. And it will again. This is just the beginning, because when these plants that are being built right now start opening up, we've never had anything like this. There's a boom. There's a construction boom right now, but that's going to be bigger than that. That's going to be an economic boom as soon as they open up, and it's going to be something special. We have car companies coming in. When I was in Japan, Toyota, Mr. Toyota, I said, "What's your name?" "Toyota." I said, "Oh, you're rich." I said, "How much of the company do you own?" 92.1%. I said, "I'm glad you said the one. He wants to be there." I said, "You're a rich guy." And he said, "I'm investing $10 billion in the U.S. And you know who I'm talking about, right? You introduced me, Mr. Senator. You introduced me originally when you were the ambassador to Japan. He's still good. He's still strong. But he had no interest in investing in this country. Now he's investing $10 billion as of 1 week ago. in building new plants. We have auto plants coming in incredibly, but we have AI and all of them. And we can't be extorted to give $1.5 trillion to people that came into the country illegally, many from prisons, many drug dealers. A lot of people came in from mental institutions. They want to give a lot of money to the people that came in illegally. We have to get them out. We can't, no country can sustain that. That's not like an attack on our country. In no country, these are not going to be productive people. These are going to be anti-productive people. And we can be, all have big hearts. I have a bigger heart than anybody, but we can't let that happen. It's time for Republicans to do what they have to do, and that's terminate the filibuster. It's the only way you can do it. And if you don't terminate the filibuster, you'll be in bad shape. We won't pass any legislation. There'll be no legislation passed for 3.25. We have 3.25 years, so that's a long time. But when they can't do an extension, and John, I think they've done an extension every single time they've ever been asked forever. This is the first time they haven't done an extension. Extensions are supposed to be easy, but if they won't do an extension, they won't do any bill, even a simple bill. And we should do our own bills. We should get out. We should do our own bills. We should open up. We should start tonight with the country's open. Congratulations. Then we should pass voter ID. We should pass no mail-in voting. We should pass all the things that we want to pass to make our elections secure and safe, because California is a disaster. Many of the states are disasters. But can you imagine when they vote almost unanimously against voter ID? All we want is voter ID. You go to a grocery store, you have to give ID. You go to a gas station, you give ID. But for voting, they want no voter ID. That's only for one reason, because they cheat. We would pass that in 15 minutes. If you don't get it, you'll never pass that. You'll never talk about mail-in ballots. Mail-in ballots make it automatically corrupt. If you have mail-in ballots, automatically it's correct. Even Jimmy Carter, they had the Carter Commission after he got out of office, and he had a group of very distinguished people, Democrats and Republicans, and they passed, they recommended things take place. It was a long time ago. And they said about mail-in ballots, if there is mail-in ballots, there will definitely be corruption, because, you know, they pass through too many hands. I mean, you go in to vote, and they want your card. Even me, I went into Palm Beach. You go in to vote, they want your card, you're this, you're that. They say, I'm sorry to do this, sir, but I have to look at your identification. I said, that's all right. I love that. But, you know, you're really not going to get away with much. It was very, very professional, very good, and the way it's supposed to be. But these people don't want that. They have legislation in California where it's illegal to ask somebody for voter ID. If you ask somebody for voter ID, if you're an official, and you say, I'd like to see your voter ID, they can arrest you, okay? They can arrest you because they want to cheat, and they get away with it, and the Republicans let them get away with it, and we won't do that if we have the filibuster. So we're going to talk about that a little bit, and we're going to see if we can sway, because I know we have a lot of, not a lot, I'd say half feel this way, maybe a little bit less than half, and it's time to have a really good talk. If I thought that they weren't going to pass the filibuster, I wouldn't even bring it up. They're going to pass it within the first hour. And if they take power, and it's more likely that they take power if we don't do it, because we're not going to be passing any legislation. They're not going to approve anything. We're going to go 3.25 years. There won't be one bill that we're going to pass. Because the easiest thing to pass is exactly right now what they won't pass. And they'll do that, and they'll wreak havoc. But let's assume they get it. They're doing it anyway, so it wouldn't matter. They're doing it anyway. And, you know, I have a case where I have great U.S. attorneys that can't be approved because of the blue slips. The blue slips, I think you should terminate blue slips, too. It's a mental termination because it's really a custom. But if you have a Democrat senator or two is bad, but it doesn't make any difference. If you have one senator writes a negative letter on some great U.S. attorney, we had it in Manhattan, Southern District, Jay Clayton, one of the most respected lawyers in the whole country, by far, one of the most respected, and couldn't get approved. The courts approved him. The courts couldn't believe it. They did it like instantly. He went to the best schools, got the best marks, top of his class. Everything was perfect. I mean, he was led the perfect life. Went to Sullivan and Cromwell. Almost immediately became the head of Sullivan and Cromwell. You know, the most prestigious law firm, I would say, in the country, just about. Whether it's Sullivan or two or three I could name, but Sullivan, I would say, really, maybe number one. He was the head of Sullivan and Cromwell for like 20 years. He went to the SEC, was flawless. He did it for me. He was the SEC chairman. He was flawless. Then he went to Apollo, where he was the chairman of Apollo, and was flawless. Everything went good. The stock went through the roof and everything. I asked him to go to the Southern District, and he said, "I'll do what you'd like to do, sir." He's a very high-quality person. But he couldn't get approval from Schumer. Schumer didn't approve him. The best student, the best schools, everything. He's like flawless. And the courts actually said, "You're not approving Jay Clayton?" Right, Lindsay? You heard this. The courts actually interceded, and they approved him. But that's an unusual guy. We have other people that are really good, but people don't know how good. Top students, top colleges, and they're U.S. attorneys, and they won't be approved. They're not going to be approved. We have one in Los Angeles who's phenomenal. No, the senators, the Democrats are, again, they're kamikazes. The Democrats are not going to approve them. Blue slips are a disaster. So the only people I can get approved are Democrats. I was told that by the Democrats. We'll only approve Democrats. I said, really, is that right? Not going to work that way. Not going to work that way with me. But the blue slips are a total disaster. I have 10 people right now that are doing a phenomenal job, and they will be out of office pretty soon. They've got another 2-3 weeks, a couple of them, and then they're going to have to leave. And it's actually a blight on their record because, nobody knows why they left, but it looks like they served 8 weeks and then they had to leave. But they're not going to get the approval because the Democrat, radical left lunatic senators are saying you can't, we're not going to approve you. And if we're not going to approve you, I had actually one Republican who got 2 great letters, but it turned out that he was a rhino, but that was a nice term for him. Now, he got 2 letters of approval, and when I said 2 Democrats approved him, I had to fire him because I figured if 2 Democrats approved him, they wrote the most beautiful letters. I found out, man, this is strange. And he was no good. I fired him. He was really not much of a Republican. The recommendation of that one wasn't such a good recommendation. Someday I'll tell you who recommended him, but it wasn't exactly the best. But when I saw when I saw the 2 senators from Virginia gave him glowing marks, Tim, I said, let me see this. I read the most beautiful letters I've ever seen. I said, I called him up. I said, sorry, you're fired. Get the hell out of here. And but it's a horrible thing. Blue slips is a horrible thing because I have the right to pick judges and I have the right to pick U.S. attorneys, and this takes away the right from me. And I think we're going to go to court on it, and we'll see what happens in court. But it gives the president, it takes away the right of the president to pick people to serve on the court and to serve as U.S. attorneys, which is very important. But the biggest thing is the filibuster. We have to get the country going. We will pass legislation at levels you've never seen before, and it'll be impossible to beat us. By the way, if they do, they're going to do it anyway, and they are going to immediately do the filibuster. And when they do the filibuster, they're going to pack the court. They want at least five justices. Now I hear it's up to 5. I actually heard up to 7 and up to 9, okay? They want new judges. They want to pack the court, and they will do it in the first day, maybe the week. Maybe they'll slow it down because there's no reason to rush. But they'll do it first week. They'll vote on this. And I have friends over there that are Democrats. I'm close to a lot of people. And I asked them about that because some people say, well, maybe they won't do that. I mean, they destroyed the career of Manchin and Sinema, and they got them out. They were the only objectors. Nobody else is going to object. They're going to do it the first day. They're going to pack the court. They're going to make D.C. a state, and they're going to make Puerto Rico a state. So now they pick up 2 states. They pick up 4 senators, okay? You think you have problems? They're going to do all of the things. They're going to pick up electoral votes. It's going to be a very, very bad situation. And it's done. It's done. As soon as they attain power. Now, if we do what I'm saying, they'll most likely never attain power because we will have passed every single thing that you can imagine that it's good and all good for the country. And there'll be no reason to. If we don't do that, people will say they're not doing much and they're in power. So the good news is we did the great, big, beautiful bill, and it's the greatest thing we could have done. And the smartest thing with John and our Speaker of the House, who's so good, Mike Johnson, we did all in one bill. If we didn't, John, it would be a problem because, we would have gotten a small piece passed. A lot of people wanted to do that. A lot of people in the room wanted to do that. They went along with me and John and everybody, and we got this thing passed. Honestly, it's 4 years worth of goodies. No tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on, think of it, no tax on overtime. It's an unbelievable tax cut for the workers and for business, where business is going to create jobs, and we're creating jobs at levels that nobody's ever seen before. All these things are good. We have to be able to get the word out. If we don't get the word out, we're making a very big mistake. So I have this long, beautiful, and very boring speech. I won't bother reading it, but because we can just start talking, and I think it's very important. We have to get the country open, and the way we're going to do it this afternoon is to terminate the filibuster. And it's possible you're not going to do that, and I'm going to go by your wishes. You're very smart people. We're good friends, but I think it's a tremendous mistake, really. It would be a tragic mistake, actually. It's time. It's time. If I thought they weren't going to approve, I'd sort of be with you. It'd be fine. I'd be neutral to with you. But knowing that they're going to pass it as soon as they get any semblance of control, they'll pass it first thing, then it's like we have to do it first. And we have 2 years, and we'll end up with 2-3 years, and we'll have this country so perfect. We will have passed more legislation than any Congress and any group of senators or a group of congressmen. And we will get it through. They'll send it to us. We'll send it to them. It'll be a beautiful machine. Otherwise, we're just going to sit around and argue with these people all day long, and they're highly unrealistic. Highly unrealistic. Many of them are radical left subversives, frankly. So I want to thank everybody, and we're going to talk, and I want to thank the press for treating us so really well for that foreign trip. It was an amazing, we had just an amazing meeting. Don't forget, 2 months ago, it looked like the whole world was in trouble over rare earth. And that's no longer even a subject that people talk about. It was all worked out very quickly. Without tariffs, I couldn't have done it. I put a 100% tariff on China. As soon as I heard it, within 20 minutes, I put a 100% tariff on China. When President Xi, who's really a friend of mine, as much as he can be a friend, he's a tough man. He's a tough man. Smart man, actually. Very smart. The press doesn't like it when I call him very smart. You know, they think I'm not supposed to call him smart. But at least 1.4 billion people, without question. In fact, during the meeting, we were there. A couple of you were there, and some of you saw it. So he's here, and he's got about 6 people on each side. And every one of those people was standing like this. They were at attention. And I made a comment to one of them, and I got no response. I said, "Are you going to answer me?" I got no response. And President Xi didn't let him have any. So if there's any question, I said, I want my cabinet to behave like that. I'm demanding that I want them sitting up like that, Tim, just nice and straight. I never saw posture like that. I've never seen men so scared in their lives. They have the equivalent of a vice president. He was, I said, "Are you going to answer my question?" And he's like, he doesn't move. I said, "What's wrong with this guy?" "I will answer all questions." Why don't you behave like that? JD doesn't behave like that. JD butts into conversations. I want to have that for at least a couple of days, okay, JD? We'll keep you long term, but a couple of days of that would be very, very nice. Okay, I want to thank you, and we'll talk a little bit. And I see they set me up with a podium. I thought I'd just be sitting, but it's probably easier. I want to thank you all very much. Thank you to the press, and you can go, and we'll speak to you later. Thank you. I'm going to Miami to make a speech today at a big group, and we have a nice big crowd, and we'll see you there. A lot of you are traveling down with me. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, you sound very frustrated by last night's elections. What are the takeaways for people in this room?
Keep moving.
Thank you, press. What happens if they don't eliminate the filibuster?
Keep moving. Thank you, press.
President Trump there having some laughs and some sobering words with Republican senators at a White House breakfast.
That's right. He's invited them in. Clearly, he's expressed his frustration. He said 4 times they told him they would get it done to reopen the government and have not done so. So he is advocating very strongly for the filibuster. And he's saying if they don't, it's FUD. It's fear, uncertainty, doubt on what will happen if they don't accomplish his agenda while they have the opportunity. He wants the filibuster gone. We'll have to wait and see what happens, but they have brought the press out, and they're going to discuss how to reopen the government. And he also had very strong words about killing his judiciary picks as they have to go through the Senate process. So we'll be keeping you updated on that. And of course, he'll be down in Miami at the business conference, so we'll be following that as well. But for now, we're going to move on, and we're going to have a discussion with a Republican reaction to last night's Democratic sweep. Joining us now is Mike Howell. He's president of Oversight Project. And Mike, thank you for joining us this morning. First, let's kick off just with your overall reactions to the elections last night. Of course, a Democratic sweep, but these were, in fact, blue states and a blue city.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think some will overstate the importance of these elections that were always uphill battles for the Republicans, who had their own problems on their side in terms of candidate quality, messaging, and so forth. I think my biggest takeaways are two, one on the Democrat side, one on the Republican side. First is the Democrat Party is different than it was or pretended to be 2 or even 4 years ago. They have embraced the furthest left elements, and now with some success. And so the demand signal it'll send to future, presidential hopefuls and Senate hopefuls is there is no need to keep up that facade of moderation, whether it's about, hurting your opponents or a candidate like Zohran Mamdani, who runs explicitly as a socialist communist. You aren't going to see this blue dog Democrat moderation thing that we're used to. I think those days are over. And then on the Republican side, I think the truth of the matter, and this is reflected in President Trump's comments, is frustration on the progress of the domestic policy, whether it's the economy or immigration enforcement, accountability, or any of the feature issues of his presidential campaign. It's too difficult to get those through the political system with the filibuster. That's why he's calling for it. And instead, it's really been a foreign policy focused president. That's where the most energy has been. And those issues really haven't translated to, much attention from the public. The public's focused on domestic issues.
You brought up a really fascinating point about there was this sort of undercurrent of leaning hard to the left, to the more socialist values of the Democratic Party, as opposed to the more traditional, call it Clinton or JFK style, more centrist Democratic principles. And now you say kind of that it's just out in the open. And over the last two primary seasons, Bernie Sanders was far away ahead and then somehow was sidelined. But it seemed like the policy that came out of certainly during Biden's administration were much more progressive even than Obama just 4 years earlier. So do you think that this will now happen at the national stage where they're going to just fully embrace this progressive agenda, or is it just at the local level in these blue strongholds of the Democrats?
Yeah, I think we're on the path to full embrace. And that already kind of happened in the Biden years, as you noted. The pitch of Biden was, I'm a moderate return to normalcy. But the actuality of President Biden's administration was far from that. I think a lot of that had to do with him losing control, both of him not having the command presence, and then a lot of the other, radical elements and progressive elements taking over in senior spots in the administration of the White House. But here's what I expect moving forward is it'll look a lot different. It'll sound a lot different. There will still be an attempt by a lot of mainstream media and institutions in America to kind of make it sound like warmed over Clinton era, blue dog Democrat style things. And that'll be the real test. For this transition period, try to settle enough people that it is basically just one, opposition to Trump, and then two, it's going to be wrapped in those kind of terms. You'll see the DNC speaking that way. But over time, I think, there won't be any of those pretenses or cosmetic differences. It'll just be a full-on embrace of Zohran, who is the future of the Democrat Party.
I'd like you to talk about him a bit and the situation in New York City. The claim that you're helping people by providing, $30 minimum wages. But in essence, you're kind of giving a nod to the larger businesses, right? Because you almost create an impossibility for small and mid-sized businesses to get off the ground unless they have enough capital to really get over the hump and take on much larger businesses. So what do you think will be the example in New York City under this socialist agenda?
Yeah, I think they're going to do a lot on basically wealth transfer programs that are going to be transparently obvious, but disguised as, other initiatives, whether it's these grocery store deals or, these city credit cards or what have you. And I think you're going to see a lot of the big capital in New York potentially leaving. Not as much as people are threatening online on X. If, Zohran wins, I'll get out. I don't think so. Those people have been living in a city teetering towards this for a very long time. I mean, Cuomo's policies are not too different than Mamdani's. It's just Mamdani's willing to to say it. But I think New York continues to become more of a foreign city inside of America, with a magnet for, a lot of low income, illegal and legal immigrants. And then over time, it'll resemble something closer to London. And you're not going to see it being viewed or in actual practice, this financial engine of America.
And then I want to get your take on how last night's results might go into the government shutdown. We just saw President Trump kind of pulling in all the senators for breakfast, saying their approach has not worked. What do you think? And he's blaming the results of the elections partly on that. So what do you think will happen with the shutdown?
Yeah, there's a couple things, right? Because, on the blame issue, which has always been so central to the shutdown conversations, this is the first time I think we have a shutdown where the public really identifies it as just an act of Democrat outrage to stop the government at all costs, to show opposition to President Trump. All that being said, my guess is that President Trump's takeaway from the election results is, well, he's done a ton of great foreign policy stuff that he felt he had to do in the American interest. It is not translating into domestic support. There are real domestic issues that are underlying a lot of these things in the United States, and what allows for people to accept radical ideas like socialism or just general disaffection with the system. And those obviously are economic in nature. That is number one and always will be. People cannot get secure and good paying jobs, access to housing, et cetera. But then also on a contingent of Republican voters, they want to see that their participation in the America First movement results in durable political changes, actual policy changes. And so they were promised a lot of bold things, like mass deportations and absolute accountability to see a system that they think is rigged against them, which accountability truly is a proxy for. It's not always about the individual case. It's about showing the little guy in America that, hey, the big guys actually have to play by the same rules that are used to keep you down so often. And so I think he's got time to get that on track before the midterms, but it looks like the administration, redoubles their efforts on domestic issues and understands that, it starts at home.
Well, I appreciate you sharing all your insights with us this morning, and we'll certainly be keeping a watch on what happens with the Supreme Court today and a few other key things that Trump has on his agenda. Mike Howell, thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, a lot to look at there. And of course, we'll be unpacking these issues more and more as the day and the week proceeds. But some grisly news next. A fiery cargo plane crash at Louisville Muhammad Ali International Airport in Kentucky has left at least 7 people dead and around a dozen injured.
Yeah, UPS jet was bound for Honolulu, and it went down just moments after it took off. The cause of the crash still under investigation, but here's what we know so far.
It was just after 5 o'clock Tuesday evening when UPS Flight 2976, a McDonnell Douglas MD-11 cargo jet, lifted off from UPS Worldport at Louisville Muhammad Ali International Airport. Moments later, disaster. Eyewitness video showed flames on the plane's left wing and a trail of smoke. The jet then crashing and exploding in a huge fireball in an industrial area just outside the airport. Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear last night confirmed the crash and said state and federal teams were immediately dispatched to the scene.
At approximately 5:14 p.m. Eastern Time tonight, UPS Flight 2976 from Louisville, Kentucky to Honolulu, Hawaii, an MD-11 with 3 crew members on board, was involved in a catastrophic crash here in Louisville adjacent to our airport.
Beshear said the impact and explosion destroyed parts of nearby businesses in an industrial area, including a petroleum recycling facility and an auto parts shop. Louisville Mayor Craig Greenberg confirmed fatalities early in the investigation, with first responders still combing through wreckage and debris.
As of right now, we know there are 4 confirmed fatalities, and we believe there are additional fatalities as well. But we still have first responders who are actively searching the scene right now. So we will continue to provide more information on victims as it becomes available.
That toll later rose to at least 7. Beshear said at least 11 were injured, some very significantly. The governor said the National Transportation Safety Board would be in charge of the investigation and asked residents to remain cautious near the crash zone. Beshear said the crash was especially violent and urged Kentuckians to support the families waiting for word on loved ones.
Anybody who has seen the images in the video know how violent this crash is. And there are a lot of families that are going to be waiting and wondering for a period of time. We're going to try to get them that information as fast as we can, but if this is a family you know, Please give them your support. Please give them your prayers. Please give them your love.
Mayor Greenberg echoed that message, making special mention of the UPS workers.
Send my prayers to our entire UPS family across Louisville and across the country. UPS is such an important part of our Louisville family, and we know it's a tough evening as it will be in the days ahead.
UPS confirmed it has paused operations at its massive Worldport facility, which sorts over 400,000 packages an hour.
Chinese fast fashion giant Shein opens its first permanent store in Paris today, sparking strong opposition from French designers, lawmakers, and store owners.
Some experts say Shein is using its partnership with the French store as a stepping stone for its global expansion strategy. NTD international correspondent David Vives reports from Paris.
The opening of spaces dedicated to Shein in the BHV store is taking France's fashion world by storm. The Chinese brand, accused of supporting pedocriminality on Monday after authorities found childlike sex dolls for sale on its platform, is also facing backlash from fashion labels. Around a dozen French brands present at the BHV said they would leave the store in protest over Shein's arrival. The government also withdrawn its funding from the society managing the BHV. A small group of protesters, including fashion designers, gathered outside the BHV department store in central Paris on Wednesday. Demonstrators held signs reading "Shame on Shein," denouncing what they called the company's unethical business practices. For Fashion Association Vice President Céline Dupuis, this might change the face of the fashion world.
It's a major shift. Shein started online, and now it's moving into the heart of Paris, right across from City Hall. To me, it's a threat to democracy. Their approach is aggressive, manipulative on social media, and toxic, both in how they sell clothes and how they push people into overconsumption.
Shein stands for everything we don't like in terms of textile composition, manufacturing, and distribution. Its products, how to say it. They're poor quality, certainly cheap, but they won't last. My generation and that of my grandmothers prefer a quality item that would last over time. These are my values, what I created my brand on.
The partnership between BHV and Shein comes as BHV faces significant financial losses, according to its management company. This includes months-long delays in paying salaries to some employees.
I spoke with BHV workers yesterday. They are all very worried about their jobs, since Mr. Merlin, the current owner of the store, has stopped paying the brands that have been established for 6 months. So it's very dangerous for the security of the people who work at BHV and for the brands. I would like to add that this is one country that created fashion to begin with. We must speak out against this Shein presence in stores because we don't hold the same values as they do. Remember, childlike sex dolls have been found on the Chinese website, and now we found that we can also order bladed weapons too.
The BHV is now at the center of a backlash spanning politics, fashion brands, and store owners. The Federation of Paris Grand Stores has voted unanimously to exclude BHV after its partnership with Shein. Shein pop-up spaces are expected to open stores later this year in 5 other French cities. David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
And amid the controversy, Shein told CNN that its adult products category has been removed entirely while a review of its screening procedures is carried out.
Yes, there have been many reports, both with Shein, the model of fast fashion, and in general, anything produced in the Chinese Communist Party, of exploitative labor, slave labor, child labor. And so these are reports. The BBC had a very in-depth article about this, and something, of course, that we'll be keeping an eye on and reporting on moving forward. But at this point, we've got to wrap up the show. But if you have any feedback, you can send us an email at goodmorning@ntd.com. We'd love to hear from you.
Thanks for watching. I'm Stephanie Cox.
I'm Carrie Dunst. We'll see you soon.